to have the entire industry shut down and everybody out of work.
Yeah.
And most of them not taken care of very well through that whole unemployment process. A lot of people bailed. They just said, hey man, this isn't a safe industry or safe career for me.
Yes.
And so we lost a huge portion of our workforce that way.
You know, I'm completely inspired by the different innovations that happen in our industry, and I'm super excited to introduce you to this week's guest, a chef and partner in a very dynamic restaurant group that's making a huge difference with their approaches to the labor challenge. Now, you're going to want to stick around because they have a new program that it's called Tip the Kitchen. So first of all, obviously there's been a disparity for years in our industry between front of house, back of house, but now the kitchen is being tipped as well. But it goes so far beyond that. This is an innovative program that literally other restaurant groups are reaching out to this company to find out what they're doing and how they're doing it. And they are 100% staffed in their restaurants during this labor challenge. So stick around. You're not going to want to miss this episode.
You're tuned in to the Restaurant Rockstars podcast. Powerful ideas to rock your restaurant. Here's your host, Roger Bodwin.
Not answering your phone is one of the quickest ways for your restaurant to lose a potential customer. But between serving in-person customers and dealing with the kitchen, it's hard for staff to prioritize incoming calls. That's why your restaurant needs Pop Menu Answering. Simple questions that keep your phone line tied up can be handled without pulling a staff person from your in-person hospitality. Reclaim the power of your phone. Pop Menu Answering is powered by artificial intelligence to answer the simple questions most people call in with, like, do you have outdoor seating, or what are your hours? Within the Pop Menu platform, you can customize answers for your restaurant and choose the voice your guests hear, plus create customized greetings. Pop Menu Answering picks up your phone 24/7, 365 days a year, turning every phone call into an opportunity. Plus, Pop Menu's full collection of tools helps optimize your restaurant's website and menu, streamlines your ordering experience, and assists in retargeting to enable you to build long-lasting relationships with your guests. Get help answering your restaurant's calls now with Pop Menu Answering. And for a limited time, my listeners can get $100 off their first month plus an unchanging monthly rate at popmenu.com/rockstars. Go now to get $100 off your first month at popmenu.com/rockstars. Listen, I'm all about marketing, but believe me, very few marketing ideas today are fully trackable, where you know exactly where the business is coming from, and you also know that it's generating a positive return on your investment. Now, I no longer own restaurants, but if I did, this idea would be at the very top of my marketing plan. It's all about birthdays. Everyone has a birthday, and they are a huge, let me repeat that, huge source of business in your restaurant. Why wouldn't you want to focus in on reaching everyone with a birthday in your area? Well, you can with the Birthday Club from Fan Connect. Best part is they do everything for you. You get a turnkey marketing system that sends birthday cards in advance, inviting people to celebrate at your restaurant from your area code, plus a sign-up strategy for your existing customers. New business, repeat business, higher check averages, and a massive customer database. You can get all this with the Birthday Club. Check it out and sign up now at getfanconnect.com/birthday rockstar.
Welcome back, everyone. This is the Restaurant Rockstars podcast. With me today is chef and partner Jamie Lynch of the Fifth Street Group, which is 7 concepts in Charlotte, Charleston, Nashville, and soon to be Denver, Colorado. How are you today, Jamie?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Thanks so much for being on this show, man. I think it's awesome that you're here. And I really enjoy speaking with chefs because you guys are really the heart of what we call the heart of the house. So I think it's really an interesting perspective to hear all about things from the back of house perspective, but you're also a partner in this business. So you have operational control, you make decisions. So we're going to get into all this and we'll talk about your concepts, of course, but as my audience knows, I always like to start with the backstory of my guests. So take us back as far as you care to go.
All right. Well, I don't have that, that culinary journey that a lot of chefs have where, my grandmother was, had the whole family around the kitchen kind of thing. That wasn't really my experience. I fell into restaurants as my first job. I was 16 years old, kind of a punk rocker, hardcore kid, getting into trouble, that kind of thing. That was my story. And I started at a local bar and grill in Marblehead, Massachusetts, this little lobster town on the North Shore of Boston. And it was this seedy little bar, the locals bar.
I may have been in that bar, Jamie, because I've got a good friend that's been in Marblehead a real long time. And I've been there many times. Are we talking about the downtown sort of harbor area?
Yeah, no. So it's not the Sail Loft or Maddie's. That's the.
I've been to both of those places. So well, anyway, keep telling us your story. I'm familiar with Marblehead.
This was called the School Street Grill. I started as a dishwasher there, and I fell in love with the high octane, adrenaline rush of the kitchen. That was my fix.
Yeah, I get it.
So that's what kind of got the hooks in me. What I remember, the line cook there, was this guy who used to make magic mushroom milkshakes, before the shift and start tripping out and cooking these burgers. And I was like, this guy's nuts. I can't believe you can do this in a job. So anyways, that was the thing that got me hooked on the restaurant business. I did that for years, started, prep cooking and fry cooking and stuff like that. Really the real, kind of nuts and bolts of the kitchen stuff. Later, I moved to New Hampshire. I was working at this from scratch. This is probably after high school, 18 years old, so a few years later. I started cooking for a chef who at a from scratch Mexican restaurant in New Hampshire. And he started teaching me kind of about, marrying flavors and some technique stuff. And at that point, realized that I had a natural talent for cooking in the kitchen life. He really pushed me to go to culinary school. I decided that if I was going to have any chance at some sort of successful life, I better try to find a career. So I followed his advice. I ended up going to school at NECI in Vermont, Burlington, Vermont.
I'm familiar with that school.
Yeah, New England Culinary Institute. It's no longer there, but great culinary school. 7-to-1 teacher ratio, very hands-on and mentor-styled teaching, which I really did well in, and I excelled there. As part of that program, I had to do 2 internships. My first internship I did in San Francisco under Michael Mina at Aqua Restaurant, and that just blew my hair back. Walking into that kitchen, Michael was there every night. People that don't know, Michael's probably one of the most successful American chefs in the country. He's a rock star. But working in his kitchen was my first experience in an upscale fine dining situation, and I loved it. Those guys kind of took me under the wing, started really teaching me about upscale kitchen kind of operations and cooking. At that point, I realized that people really craved this type of food, these types of experiences, and that I excelled at it. Being kind of a fringe outsider, not very sociable person. I was the kind of kid that was always fighting with people and all that kind of stuff. I realized that through food was a way that I could connect with people in a nurturing way without having to be too close. I could still be behind the curtain, taking care of people, showing them hospitality without it having to be this kind of close connectivity. And that to me really was appealing. And I went all in. I went all in on cooking. From that point, I went back to school, finished up my degree in culinary, and went to New York City. I figured if I was going to excel at this, I had to learn from the best. So I moved to New York. This was probably 1996, I think, and I worked at Le Cirque 2000 in the Palace Hotel.
Yep, famous name there For sure.
Yeah, that was, I went from Michael Mina, which was like my, that's what broke the shell for me. And then going to Le Cirque was like a legendary situation. I mean, Cirio Macchione used to come down the line.
Yes.
During pre-shift and pick at your mise en place and thank everybody for being there. I mean, it was magical to work under somebody.
So cool. And celebrities back then too, right? A big celebrity restaurant. Lots of famous people would come in. You were cooking for them. I'm sure accolades followed, but keep going. I don't want to interrupt your story. This is great.
Yeah. Tons of celebrities. I remember Whoopi Goldberg was one of the ones that we used to come in all the time and
regular.
A total regular. And we would get, we would get the server would come in when she sat down and said, "Hey, Whoopi's here." And we knew what that meant. That meant she was ordering off menu every time. Roasted chicken, right? We didn't have it on the menu with, I think it was carrot puree or something. Mm-hmm. Of course, I was the vegetable cook there. So every garnish or vegetable that went with the main course was my responsibility. So at that point I had to scramble off the line and find these carrots. Usually they would come from the veal stock and we would make this carrot puree for her. Anyways, so, that was an amazing experience. I was there for about a year. I worked under Andrew Carmelini. He was the sous chef there at the time, one of the sous chefs. And I worked kind of on his part of the brigade there under him. And he kind of started this mentorship kind of relationship with me. He really took me under his wing, broke me down and kind of built me back up as a cook. He was offered the job as the chef de cuisine at Danielle Boulud's new restaurant, Cafe Boulud at the time. Mm-hmm. Yes. So that was in the old Danielle when he moved, reopened Danielle and turned the original into Cafe Boulud. Andrew went and it was the CDC there. I desperately wanted to join that team. Unfortunately, most of the cooks from Le Cirque moved over with him, as they kind of do in New York. They kind of travel in bands like a little pirate enclave.
Yes.
And and there was not room for me on that team at the time. So I went to work for Charlie Palmer, another legend in New York City. Mm-hmm. I moved up very quickly through the ranks of his kitchen to the rank of saucier. So I was kind of a lead line cook at that point. When I got the call from Andrew, and Andrew said, "Hey," they called me Monkey back in the day. That was my nickname because of the shaved head and the big ears. So he's like, "Hey, Monkey, I got a spot for you. You want to join the team at Cafe Boulud? What's the job, Andrew?" Veg guy. So I was like, man, I'm going, 2 steps back. I would not let that opportunity pass me up. So I jumped on it, moved over, and ended up working on that team for a few years.
Well, you're traveling in rock star restaurant circles here, because we're talking celebrity chefs, big name people, and the teams that they support. And like you said, it's like sometimes whole teams will move to a new situation because that is the established rock star dream team, and you're part of this in multiple situations. I mean, that is completely inspiring to young chefs listening to this episode right now, just letting you know that with or without a formal education, your skill set, your motivation, your desire can take you to the ultimate pinnacle of this business, and you can work for all around the world, anywhere, with some really amazing people. And you're a testament to that. So I'm loving this story so far. Keep going.
Yeah, 100%. So of course I worked with Andrew for about, I think 2 years there, everywhere through the kitchen. I started as the veg guy, the entremetier.
Yes.
Worked my way up to saucier. Of course, it didn't take long. I'd already been through the program with them. It was just a matter of, positions opening up. And then moving up into those positions, till I reached the position of tournant, which is, that's the round chef. You can do anything. You're kind of like, you're wherever they need you, you're there. I did that for a little while, and it was clear to me that there was no sous chef gigs happening in that team. It's not a position unless somebody dies.
Gotcha.
You're just waiting, you're waiting in the wings.
Yeah. So you got to keep moving.
Yeah. So I did that, and an opportunity opened up at a restaurant called Tocqueville on 15th Street right off the Union Square Market for a sous chef. Little 40-seat restaurant, husband and wife owner team. It was an awesome opportunity for me, so I took it. I learned a ton from Marco. Marco Morero was the chef there. They still have a restaurant. I think they moved it to the corner. But anyways, much bigger location. I learned a ton about shopping from the market, cooking features daily, how to approach food in a more kind of like real simple ingredient driven fashion. And I was there for about 9 months when 9/11 happened. And that was just a huge.
So you were right there in the middle of that whole thing.
Yeah, I was actually in the shower getting ready to go to work when everything happened.
Yeah.
I actually got out of the shower and saw the whole second plane situation. It was like, what the hell is going on?
Crazy. So you literally were very close by, and just the aftermath of that for so long, how it affected anyone who lived or anyone connected to any of those people and the city itself. What an experience. I can only imagine what that was like, but again, keep going. This is awesome.
Yeah, it was crazy, man.
Yep.
The city flipped on its head. I mean, it was really depressing to be there. We ended up cooking for rescue workers. We were about 4 blocks from Ground Zero.
Wow.
Ground Zero started at 11th Street.
Yeah.
And so we would just go into the restaurant, batch out as much, stuff in hotel pans as we could and just take it down and hand it off.
Beautiful.
Yeah, we did that for about 2 months and I had to go. I mean, it was the only thing that was happening in New York that I could tell where the bars were packed. Like everybody was just.
Doesn't that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was terrifying and depressing
Yep.
And there was really no clear vision as to like how long things would take and, all
it's
that.
like kind of the pandemic. It's like before the pandemic, this was an international tragedy that literally there were no answers. And it was every single day was something new. And it's like, yeah, I can only imagine you had no idea what the future was for your situation and that restaurant and even New York City, really. So,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, so at that point, I think it was about February. So I guess it was February of 2002 that I think that's right. I decided just to get out. I threw as much stuff as I could into my Chevy Caprice Classic. And I had it parked in Astoria, Queens. I never drove it in the city for anybody who's been in New York and never drove it, just sat there. It was a storage unit. I had to move it every couple of days for the, street cleaning. But I threw everything I could in there, my knives and everything. And I drove down to Charlotte, North Carolina. I had a friend who grew up in Gastonia. We went to culinary school together in Vermont. He was kind of making moves in the Charlotte scene and said, hey, man, let's do a restaurant together. Come down here and let's just figure it out. So I literally drove down, kept my stuff in the car and slept on his couch for a while until, he got engaged and moved out of the house that he was renting and I took it over. So that was my move to Charlotte. Craziest thing about that is when I got to Charlotte, I had my resume ready to go and I pounded the streets. I tried to figure out who are the best restaurants in town, who are the best chefs to work for. And this was just a completely different landscape than what I was used to. There was maybe 5 chefs at that time that were doing like a chef-driven restaurant. Everything else was corporate steakhouses, chain restaurants, things like that.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm.
So I went around with my resume, dropped them off to these people, asked to talk to the chefs, and I just got shut down. Like I couldn't believe it. Nobody would hire me.
With your kind of experience, huh?
That's what I was thinking. I'm like, what are you guys thinking?
Yeah.
Like, what's going on? So, anyways, one chef ended up hiring me, Mark Martin. He was an alum from my school, had his own little neighborhood American bistro, saw that I went to Necky and was like, all right, come on, looks like you work for some cool guys. Come work for me. So I ended up working with him and that was great. He gave me a shot. It was me, him, I think, and one other cook in the kitchen. So, I use the term sous chef, but we were really all cooks and dishwashers and prep cooks. But that kind of got my foot in the door. he used all local ingredients. He actually had farmers come to the restaurant and drop off orders and stuff. And that's where I met Sammy Koenigsberg. Sammy is a farmer, organic farmer in Charlotte. Started kind of the slow food movement in Charlotte, the farmers market there. He was kind of influential in that whole movement in the Charlotte area. And this guy blew my mind. Working for some of these great chefs all over the place, like these, epic, chefs at the pinnacle of culinary, we had all the best ingredients. I mean, they came from all over the world. We could get anything we wanted because people would pay for it. But meeting Sammy flipped a switch for me where, we were using products that literally were being grown 20 miles up the road. And this stuff was beautiful. I mean, gorgeous produce, chickens that he raised on his farm that were just, very well taken care of, everything organic. So I started going out to his farm and on the week when I was off and just kind of learning about the process and what was going on there. And that really changed my approach to food, which has always been very technique driven based on my background. But it changed my perspective to the ingredients and how to honor these ingredients in a way where you don't have to use these magical techniques to make this beautiful stuff happen on a plate. If you use the best stuff that you can get and the freshest, most healthy and nutritious foods, they'll do the artistry for you, that kind of thing. So anyways, that was kind of a seed that kind of happened that feeds into my later story. At that point, I was working around Charlotte a little bit. I ended up getting offered a job as a chef de cuisine under Bruce Moffett at a restaurant called Barrington's. This was a small 40-seat restaurant. It kind of mirrored Tocqueville a little bit. So I was very interested in that because I had just kind of come from that kind of situation. Bruce hired me as a chef de cuisine. He was expanding his operation, opening another restaurant. So he needed to kind of focus on that. And I got the opportunity to kind of come in there and really start to stretch my own culinary wings, explore my cooking voice a little bit and see what that was going to be. And he was great about, letting me lead the team. He taught me a lot about running a small business, how to, price your proteins and work with purveyors and all that kind of stuff, which I'd never done before. So it was a great experience. I worked with Bruce for, I think, 3 years on, gaining this kind of knowledge and kind of building my name in the community and getting, my brand out there, like my kind of cooking. When Patrick Whalen and Alejandro Torrio, my business partners now, kind of reached out to me through our other business partner, Mills, who I knew from the neighborhood. He was kind of the designer. I kind of knew him from the bars and hanging out and kind of late night situation. And they kind of reached out and said, "Hey man, would you, I think he was going to buy my motorcycle." That's how it all started. I had a Ducati and he was like, "Hey, you got that sweet bike. I'm into buying bikes.
Yeah.
You want to talk?"
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that bike.
That's awesome. Yeah.
But, I was hard up for some cash and I had a newborn at that point. And I was like, yeah, I need to sell my bike. So we got to talking and he hit me up and said, "Hey, look, me and these guys are thinking about starting our own thing." And the thing that they were starting ended up being Five Church. But the premise of everything that really sold me on leaving Barrington's and teaming up with these guys was everybody's background was a little bit different. Everybody had an expertise in hospitality that the others didn't. Obviously mine was cooking in back of the house. Patrick had a lot of bartending experience and front of the house experience, as well as a really good brain for numbers and business, which I had none of. Alejandro was a club promoter from New York and really understood marketing and brand development and that kind of thing, getting like a real buzz around an entity or a project. And Mills obviously had a really creative designing side. The premise was, why not us? Right? We're out here running these businesses and restaurants for people, making them tons of money, making them successful, and with none of the glory, right? We're not at the front of any of these projects. And why not us? We got the skills to do this. And so we got together and decided we were going to do it. And Five Church was the brainchild of that. And that kind of started our road to opening. We'll have 7 restaurants by the end of next year.
That is an amazing story, and so many things come to mind. We talked about the importance of, say, business and financial skills, not just having strong culinary talent. We talked about partnering. And for, like I said, young chefs, this is such an aspirational episode because, again, the inspiration and the things you're telling us in the story is inspiring people on what is possible. And one of the pitfalls of being a restaurant owner, as our audience knows, and as you know, is people come and go, and it's a high turnover business. And a lot of restaurants' reputations are built and live and die on the chef in the kitchen, right? And all of a sudden they get a better offer or something happens and they give notice, and it's like, okay, now I got to rebuild an operation, find someone with equal, if not greater talent, and then rebuild, or at least, damage control to my regulars that have come to expect that style, that cuisine, that quality, all that sort of, it's such a problem. And I speak from a restaurant owner's perspective because over 20 plus years, I hired and employed many chefs, and people come and go, and I've had these challenges. So becoming a partner is a way that a restaurant, if they recognize talent in someone and future potential, it's to secure the reputation and the long-term success of an operation. And that's the story you're telling right now. It's like you pay your dues on the street in numerous experiences. You learn skills from every place you worked, and now you brought your best talents to bear on this opportunity that is now growing. And so, it's two sides of that coin, looking at it from the chef who's got inspiration and aspiration and ambition that wants to, I think a lot of chefs want to put their name on the door of a place.
They do.
But in order to do that, again, you have to have more than just the culinary skills. I think you need to bring the whole skill set to bear, because this is, after all, a financial business with shrinking margins today. Like, it's horrible. With rising costs and labor issues and supply chains and all that kind of stuff. So your journey is a really amazing one, and it's very exciting. I love that story. I think that was fantastic. So what about cooking influences? What types of cuisine do you cook when you're not even working? And do you do you love to cook when you're not literally working? Do you cook for your family, or do you just wish that someone else takes over the cooking? Because I do enough of it. But what are your inspirations, and what types of cuisines do you appreciate the most?
Good question. So I do love to cook. I am actually just getting back into cooking at home more regularly now that I have, I can't be in the kitchen every night the way that I used to. I'm not running the shifts the way my chefs are now. I have an awesome team of chefs working with me throughout our entire operation. So I do actually have the opportunity to cook at home a little bit more now, which is great because my cooking has totally changed. From what I used to cook, which was frozen pizza and, boxed macaroni and cheese when I got home. Now I'm actually cooking at home. I'm actually, going through processes and stuff. As far as inspirations, cultures are what inspire me. I'm classically French trained by my pedigree. Obviously, that's my roots.
And 100%. Your
100%.
Experiences too. Yeah.
And I'm pretty old school. Like I'm learning a lot about some new technologies and stuff in the kitchen that is opening up some doors for me and like keeping me inspired, because up until a couple of years ago, I was still, smoking meats in a hotel pan, smoker made out of, kind of this rigged up smoker device. And the technology these days is just amazing. That's, these kitchen tools and new technologies to cook with. So a lot of my younger chefs are kind of like help mold, teaching me about these technologies, which is opening up my cooking a little bit, which is a lot of fun, keeps me inspired. But to answer your question about the inspirations, it's cultures. I go through phases where, like for instance, when we were opening our stores in our restaurants in Charleston, I was researching low country cuisine and the history of low country and the slave culture, and
Yes.
how a lot of that stuff came from West Africa, which led me down this rabbit hole where I was just like gobbling up everything I could learn about West African culture and cuisine and farming techniques and all that kind of stuff. And I started cooking with a lot of like field peas and rice and all these kind of like chilies and things that we didn't have around here. And I go through phases like that. So like for a year and a half, it was like everything had this kind of West African vibe going on as I was exploring that. And then it just kind of changes over time. So I just get inspired by whatever cultural things going on that I'm interested in. And I go for it.
Awesome.
That's how I connect with stuff.
Yeah. I mean, how cool is that to keep? I mean, it is experimentation too. And you'll apply a certain style to your cooking, but then a new inspiration will maybe turn that on its head, and you're going to totally adapt your style to a new culture or cuisine. I mean, God,
totally.
See, it never gets boring. It's a constantly evolving quest to excel and to dazzle the public with your creations and to inspire the people that work under you and to keep everything elevated and to stay relevant in one of the most competitive businesses out there. I can't think of anything more exciting. That's terrific.
It is super exciting. It never gets old. That's for sure.
All right. So your restaurant group is literally creating careers, not just jobs in the industry. And that is such a strong approach to this business because, like I said earlier, this traditionally has been a high turnover business where people come and go. And my success came from building what I call the dream team staff. And that was a certain leadership style that I had, and recognition and rewards, and constantly nurturing and developing my people. And everybody works for a paycheck, right? But people really work for knowing that they're contributing to something greater than themselves, and that they feel that they fit there, and there's a chemistry amongst that team, and that people are recognized for their achievements, and those achievements and those ideas that they bring to the table are actually encouraged. And I believe that's the difference between management and leadership. Managers delegate and tell people what to do, and true leaders inspire and nurture and develop and give people room to fail and recognize and reward great achievement. And that's what keeps the staff and longevity versus turnover. And obviously you guys are at the forefront of doing that. So let's start with the labor shortage and why restaurants have been hardest hit in this whole labor crisis, because all industries are struggling with finding great people, restaurant industry perhaps more so. And then let's sort of flip that and figure out why your restaurant group is 100% staffed right now. You're recruiting with no challenges whatsoever, and your restaurants have taken on a really unique approach that is sort of the crux of where we're going with this. So take us there.
All right. So I don't have all the answers. First off, I don't know exactly why our industry has been the hardest hit. I do know that our industry is made up with a lot of different people on different kind of parts of the path of their career, right? We have some people that are just kind of, it's their first job or their job while they're in school, trying to figure out what they're going to do. We have some career people. We got, managers and chefs that are dedicated to hospitality and have that gene that they can't shake. And so this is their calling. And then everybody in between. And, to have the entire industry shut down and everybody out of work. And most of them not taken care of very well through that whole unemployment process. A lot of people bailed. They just said, hey man, this isn't a safe industry or safe career for me. And so we lost a huge portion of our workforce that way.
Devastating.
Yeah, so I think that's the biggest thing.
Okay.
I think, right?
I would agree. Yep.
I think our industry has been broken for forever. I think that the labor force model has been broken. The back of the house versus front of the house kind of pay scale situation. The fact that our margins are so tight, it really limits our ability to spend labor dollars. We have to be very careful about, that equation.
Mm-hmm.
And so, during the pandemic, while we were closed, Patrick, Alejandro, and I all moved into a house together. This 5-bedroom house. It was actually on Isle of Palms in Charleston, which is one of the Barrow Islands. I actually had to sell my farm. I opened an organic farm with my fiance that we were supplying organic produce to the restaurants. I had to close that because of the pandemic and sell the land.
Wow.
It was just like, we were just, we were all restaurant rich and cash poor. We've got these great, restaurants and stuff and things going on and cash flow. But, as soon as everything closed, that all came to a halt. We were like, oh.
Get everything you need for your operation with Smithfield Culinary. Their extensive portfolio lets you serve up a wide variety of proteins to keep your patrons happy. Choose from Smokin' Fast, which lets you add barbecue to your menu without adding a pitmaster to your payroll. Or browse their margarita offerings, encompassing everything you need for pizza toppings, plus a variety of specialty Italian meats like capicola, prosciutto, and salami. Finally, serve what you love with Smithfield, which includes everything from bacon to hot dogs to deli meats and so much more. For the products and solutions to keep your operation running strong, visit smithfieldculinary.com.
How long did that last? And was that state required closure for a certain period of time and then it got back sort of slowly? Did you have to pivot multiple times? Tell us about your pivots and what actually happened to your group during that time. I think there's still key learnings there because people in restaurants are still continuing to pivot with the labor crisis I got some government bailout money. I've spent all that. It's like, business is booming. I can't staff my restaurant. I got to close several days a week, and I'm losing revenue because I can't be open 7 days. There's all these challenges right now. So tell us about what happened to you guys.
So anyways, the vacation rental market went out the window. So we got this great lease on this house on Isle of Palm. We all moved in together. That was like our bunker, our home base. Mm-hmm. And we started really looking at what was going on. We're watching the news all the time, trying to figure out how we were going to survive this. The benefit that we had was having a church and union and restaurants in multiple states. So we had North Carolina, South Carolina, and we were working on the Nashville market. We were actually under construction here at that point. So each state had different things going on. South Carolina, it lasted for about a year just under a year, I think, that we were closed in Charleston. Charlotte was closed for a year because it was very conservative, a lot of banking uptown. Banks are just still coming back in full force now. So uptown Charlotte was a ghost town. So we didn't even really think about that. We were trying to do takeout and things like that, like most people did. But Charleston actually had a little bit looser restrictions and stuff. So we were able to do a little bit more there, which really helped carry us through this. I mean, if we weren't doing a little more business in Charleston, we would have really suffered. We did open Tempest at the very beginning of the openings. So that was in first quarter 2020. I think that's right. Or 2021. I don't know, my dates are all messed up. But that March, we opened Tempest, and it was very slow. I mean, we'd already built it. I mean, we were on the tail end of building this thing out when the pandemic happened.
Gotcha.
So it got to the point
no turning
where
back. You're committed, full speed ahead. No other choice. But
we're we just got to open the doors and hope for the best.
Yep.
And that was an epic challenge. I mean, if we did not have the team that we have today, we would just be so far up the creek. But everybody put their focus into that. Luckily, we didn't have to juggle what was going on in Charlotte. How do we keep our staff employed here? Why don't we do all that? So we could focus on getting Tempest off the ground, which is what we did.
Man.
Charleston slowly started to open. Business was not great, but there was some cash flow, which allowed us to kind of, pay some people. We did get the PPP funds, which without we would be belly up.
I was in the 100%. Same situation.
No question.
Mm-hmm.
If they had not passed those bills, we would be done.
Yep.
So we got by the skin of our teeth. We kind of were able to navigate all that, and I got to give Patrick credit for that. I mean, he was just all over the bank accounts, the money that we had, either the cash flow when we closed to
you had to be. I mean, you had to have a pinpoint accuracy as to what your losses were and what your decrease in revenues were. You had to be first in line to press the go button when all these programs were starting to get rolled out. You had to fill out the applications. You had to be accurate
100%.
About that, timely about that. And you had to be ahead of what's the next thing coming, because a lot of people heard about this stuff coming, but they were late to the plate and they didn't get the money. And it's like, that was my situation.
Yep.
There were so many different programs happening simultaneously, and it's like I committed myself to diving into all of that and making sure that. So it sounds like Patrick did the very same thing. And
yes, 100%. Wow. And I got to give him credit, man, because and I think that's a lot of why there was so many losses, like restaurant losses, because so a lot of these chef-driven places, if the chefs are not business savvy, they're not. They're not all over their numbers and their bank accounts, and
overwhelming, really.
Yeah, I'm all about the team. Like, you got to have a team of people, and because you can't have your eye on everything at all times. And so anyways, we were able to secure that, and that really helped us bring staff on. We were paying people abbreviated pay because we had to make it last. That was another thing that we did, is we had to ration it out. We said, okay, fine. If this is all the money we have, and Charlotte is closed, and we're only bringing in some leave-ins every week in Charleston, we got to make this money last for a year, right? This could take a year for us to get back to
You had no idea. Yep.
No clue. And so we really rationed it out. We were open with our teams. We said, hey guys, this is what we can afford to do. We don't want to lose you, but this is the best we can do. And if that works for you guys, come on, we'll find something to do. We'll make food for school lunches. We'll do whatever we have to do. We'll put ourselves to work. And that was really the key to kind of getting through it.
That's an awesome story too.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about Tip the Kitchen, because that's sort of at the heart of what your current success with staffing and morale and team building is really all about. And it sort of addresses the traditional maybe disparities in pay in an industry that has long affected, like you said, of the inability to pay people necessarily what they're really worth or to maintain margins. All that stuff is affected. So tell us about the program. What was the brainchild for that program? What did you learn along the way? Is it refined? Are you still tweaking it? Just take us through the whole thing.
Yeah. So, I think it all stemmed from the pandemic. I mean, the worst day of our lives was having to let go of our staff.
Yeah, I know.
We had to do it for their own good. We had to make them eligible for some unemployment and stuff like that. So we had to do it. But I mean, that's something I never have done and don't ever want to do again.
Who does? Yeah.
And so, I think, I have always felt undervalued, underpaid. I've always made less than my counterparts, either on the front of the house or whatever. I think Patrick identified that. I think he realized that there was this kind of frustration, this underlying, discrepancy and fairness between what the front of the house servers who, work a lot less than maybe the back of the house staff. I don't want to say they work less hard, because being a front of the house, they work hard. Working with the public,
every restaurant job is hard and demanding and challenging, but the kitchen works under what some would say would be more challenging conditions, extreme heat, and you're on your feet for long shifts under extreme heat and burning oils and all sorts of hazards that the front of house doesn't have to deal with,
Yep, totally. Yeah. And so, and they make quite a bit less, and they don't get tipped. And so, so I think the idea was, and with, understanding that the industry is not a safe industry for career growth, right? An industry that can disappear in the blink of an eye is going to be scary for people to really invest their energy and time into. So we needed to find a way to pay our people more. Back of the house employees need to make a livable wage. They have to be able to put food on the table, have transportation, enjoy their life. At the end of the day, what are we all doing here? You have to be able to enjoy it. And worrying about whether your job's going to be there tomorrow, worrying about whether or not you're going to make enough to, take care of your kids, send them to summer camp, whatever. We realized that we were part of the problem. We were part of this problem where we had these numbers, these labor percentages that we had to hit. And as a result, we were underpaying our staff. There's no other way to spell it out. And so we dedicated to change that. We said, we got to find a way to even this out. And so Pat started looking at a lot of different models. How do we, do we raise prices? We can't do that. You can't raise prices because now we have to raise our prices across the menu in an industry that's already suffering. So now we're alienating even a bigger population of our clientele by raising our prices. We want to keep our concepts available to everybody. We want everybody to be able to come and enjoy it.
And value is a huge part of that equation,
100%.
And it's not the guest's responsibility or issue of what a company's financial situation is. They simply want value for money and to be provided with service and a great experience.
Totally, 100%. Yeah. And so there was that equation. So we said, okay, can't raise prices. So that's not the option. We can't just pay them more. Mm-hmm. And then the idea of Tip the Kitchen was born. And how do we make that happen? And that was a long road. There was a lot of legal things we had to look at. There's a lot of labor laws. You can't, you really can't share the tips from traditionally tipped employees with traditionally non-tipped employees. That's a big no-no. Yep. We learned, so we had to really dive in and break down the rules.
Cover all your bases.
Figure out how it worked. And so we decided to give this Tip the Kitchen a try. It works amazingly. We've raised, over $1.6 million for our teams on top of their pay since we started Tip the Kitchen back last April. So just over a year, 1.6 million. It's crazy. The way it works is this. There's a couple rules. One, it's voluntary. Okay, you don't have to do it. It's not mandatory. It's not a service charge. It's if your experience is worthy, we ask you to consider leaving something for the back of the house.
Is that how it's communicated? And is it on a guest check? Do the servers talk about it? Tell us about the communication to the guest.
It's printed on the menu. It's actually at the bottom of the menu. It says Tip the Kitchen. Boom. Here's how it works.
Nice.
And then we urge the staff to explain it. They do not sell it. Right. They are trained not to sell this Tip the Kitchen. That we don't want people to feel guilted into leaving money.
It's completely optional. Sure.
It has to be completely optional, or else it doesn't work.
Okay.
We're not asking for handouts. We're asking that if we do a great job, consider it. Okay. So that's the first rule. The second rule is that that we match. So the ownership group, we match up to $500 per day for the back of the house per day.
Okay, in each restaurant, right? Each of your restaurants does that. Yeah.
Yep. Each restaurant.
Gotcha.
So let's say in Charleston, they get $200 in kitchen tips. We throw in 200. It's 400, and the back of the house splits it evenly. Everybody participates. Sous chefs, line cooks, dishwashers, everybody.
So let me ask you a question. That is an awesome concept, but there is still, and I'm not saying this is in your restaurant group, but let's just take any restaurant. There is sometimes a disparity between the contributions that people make and their work ethic and their reliability and their challenges. Now, if that were ever to occur in your restaurants or in any restaurant that is thinking of adopting this, is there any adjustment made for A players versus B- players versus C players?
No. Our team,
okay.
Nope. If they're on our team, we're hoping they're at least a B.
Okay.
Well,
there you go. Well, that's
and you know what? And actually, it helps the team kind of self-regulate. You know what I mean? Like,
yes,
the team doesn't want slackers on their team.
Right.
You know,
so it elevates everything.
It helps them hold each other accountable.
I love that.
You know, if people aren't working, they're like, bro, you're on the.
And you're making an equal share of this. You got to step up your game, buddy.
Yes, sir. So there's this awesome.
self-policing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it's kind of interesting how that worked.
That is very interesting, and that's a cultural thing too. But it's up leveling the whole the whole operation. That's very cool. Keep going. This is very interesting stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the second rule. Third is there's a stopgap. So the stopgap is to, one thing that we thought about early on and that Pat kind of devised this stopgap for was we didn't want the front of the house employees to feel that they were being penalized by us adding a tip line to the check, right? So now they have to share their tips with the back of the house. So what we do is what we call the stopgap. And that is if a guest splits a check, right? They do, they split their tip. Half goes to the front, the server, half goes to the back of the house.
So a standard percentage, you're saying, like if it's a 20 or 25% tip or whatever it is, some people may choose to 50-50 the front of house versus the back of house?
Correct. Then what we will do is we will elevate the front of the house's percentage to 21%.
Okay. Yep.
Okay. So over 20.
Yes.
So if they were left an 18% tip on their own, they actually do better by sharing with the back of the house because we elevate it to 21%.
I understand.
Okay.
Yes.
So there's a lot of cost involved in this and a lot of math involved on our end, back of the house kind of administrative end and a financial investment on our part for this to work.
Yeah.
But we can talk about that in a minute because we've done all the analysts on that tracking and we see that it's really not, it's not really elevating our operational cost much, about 1%, we think. But we can talk about that in a minute.
That's incredible. How long has the program been going, Jamie?
So it's been, so about 14 months, I think. So just a year and a few months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I think something that I heard about this elevates people's earnings by say $15K a year, which is extraordinary in this business.
Yeah, this
right?
is back of the house.
Is that realistic? Yeah, back of the house, right?
That's totally. I mean, there are some line cooks and sous chefs that are making as much as I made my first year as an executive chef.
It's
awesome. Bananas. It's totally bananas. And I'm super proud of that. I mean, that is, I wasn't paying myself much, but I was also a partner and looking out for the business. But the fact that these, entry level hospitality positions can earn a wage that affords them, a livable wage is just something we're super proud of.
Man, what a pioneering effort this is.
Yeah, it hasn't been easy. And also getting people to believe it has been hard, getting employees to believe it, getting potential people applying for work to believe that it's real. You know, they're like, is this, like, I don't believe it. Like, an owner's like taking care of the people. I'm like, no, this is like a real thing. We actually talk to our staff.
Yes.
To go do a stage, you know, do a working interview, talk with the people, see how much they're making, see if they like working here. Like, you know, get in there and check it out, interview them.
So is that leading to increased applications, and now you've got a pool of people, and literally the longevity means you don't have a lot of openings that you're creating because you've got 100% retention, and you're continuing to elevate the people that are there, and you've got a big pool to pull from if you lose somebody for whatever reason? Is that what's going on?
Yeah, no.
Is word on the street though about this? It must be, right?
Yeah, there's a little bit of word on the street. So we do get people, you know, calling the restaurant directly and saying, hey, you know, I want to hear more about this. You know, I want an opportunity. There's not a ton of that, surprisingly enough. I mean, we're using a lot of the regular avenues that people use, you know, Indeed and Facebook and all these different things. So I don't think our pool is particularly bigger than anybody else, but we do have an advantage. And I think that's what's really helping us. Yeah, this is definitely helping us.
Let's talk about the reaction of the guest when you first rolled out this initiative. And I'm hearing that it's overwhelmingly positive now. People are understanding, people are very supportive of this. And they're just, if they're a fan of your restaurants and your group, then they're on board with this. But when you first rolled it out, because it is sort of a foreign concept that is extremely rare, but I do see it being a model for the future, and you're leading the way on that. But what was the initial reaction, and how did that go?
It was mixed. I mean, like you said, you know, people who knew us as a group or were, you know, familiar with our brand and what we do, were all supportive. They were all about it.
Yeah.
We did get a lot of kind of kickback from some people. Why don't you just pay your people more? Why do we have to do it?
They don't understand.
Why don't you just raise your prices? All this kind of stuff. And, you know, which we anticipated. We kind of figured that would happen. You know, not everybody is a hospitalitarian. You know, some people, they want their stuff. They want it now. They want it cheap.
Yeah. Wow.
Those aren't the people that we are catering our business to.
No, that's true. And obviously when you build that kind of reputation, it's like, this is who we are. This is what we believe in. That's part of your mission statement, right? And that's communicated to the team. And it's like everyone stands behind that unifying voice. And your loyal regulars, your guests, even first-time visitors that jump on board will stay loyal. And it must have led to interesting online reviews too, right? Like, what are you seeing in social media? What are you seeing on TripAdvisor and Yelp about this? It must have popped up, and it must be a continual thing. Are you seeing that that's overwhelmingly positive also?
It's definitely overwhelmingly positive, for sure. Yeah. Most people are, you know, the people that actually take the time to read, you know, how it works, that we actually match whatever they put down. So it's, you know, they're getting a discount on their tipping, right? Like if we're going to match it. So your dollar goes twice as far.
That's right? A beautiful thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And so like, I think people that actually read it and think about it and get behind it are like, hell yeah, this is great. Like, look at you guys taking care of your people. Like, that is a model that we need, that everybody should kind of be looking at, right? How do we take care of people better so that they work harder in an environment that they're proud of? Like, you get better productivity. Like, it's overwhelmingly positive from most people. We still get the people that, you know, have a snarky comment or, you know, why should we have to pay your employees kind of thing. And we just, you know, we swipe it away. You know, not everybody's going to get it. They don't understand how it works.
Exactly.
And I bet if any of them, you know, took a moment to ask our staff how it affects their lives, it might change their perspective.
Wow.
You know?
Well, you know, it's gotta be, no, I'm absolutely convinced and positive that the morale of your team absolutely translates to the guest experience.
Totally.
In a 100%. Positive way. You know what I mean? And
it does. Yeah. And because, and they're also, it gives them some, responsibility. It gives them like control almost, right? Like if we all focus today, if we put out the best food we put out ever, we can earn more today, right? It gives them this like they're engaged in a way that they weren't before, right? It's like, oh, I make X amount of an hour, so like this is how much effort I'll put in. So they're connected to their potential earnings in a way that gets them engaged. The team works amazingly together now. Like to me, when we first launched it, I would say maybe in the first month, right? As we were still rolling it out, we had problems with the accounting of it, like trying to figure out how to move the money from the tip line to the guests
and do it legally, sure, like you mentioned, all that stuff.
Yeah, we had some roadblocks and issues that we had to sort out. So the first few weeks were a little jumbled, but once we got it working and smoothed out and consistently started building, and then the staff receiving the funds. I mean, the kitchen, like walking into the kitchen was like being in an alien place. I was like, what's going on here? Like, like why is there like, people will like come up, hey, thank you, chef. It's good to see you. I'm like, really? Okay, cool. Like I'm into that. So yeah, the morale is great. The team is motivated for the most part. You'll always have your issues on that front, but yeah, the morale is awesome. And honestly, the morale between the front and the back of the house is awesome too. Like they are a team, right? The servers realize that like having that extra tip line doesn't hurt them. It potentially helps them.
Right. But you're right. It opens up the lines of communication. And I mean, I know from experience that there is sometimes a challenge between front and back of house. And there are certain front of house people that are intimidated to talk to the back of house when something goes wrong on the floor in the heat of battle. And now it's like it levels the playing field and it puts everybody in literally the same mission moving forward to work together as a team, like you say. This is really, really incredible because it's covering so many different bases at the same time and working wonders for your operation. We believe it's a total game changer. And wow.
We believe it's the future. Yeah. We believe it's the future for hospitality. For sure.
I do see that, and all it takes is one restaurant group to move on to other groups and other independent restaurants, and they find a way to follow your model and I think that's going to up-level hospitality across the board.
Well, let me tell you what we've done. Yeah. So Pat started a Twitter feed for Tip the Kitchen. I think it's at @tip_the kitchen on Twitter. And we literally laid out the entire program. I mean,
I got to put that in the show notes to this episode.
Yeah, please.
Because I know this audience is like hanging on every word because it's intriguing, it's compelling. It's like you said, it's the next logical solution to this labor challenge. I mean, So I want to share this every way possible. So in addition to your social media channels that we also put in show notes and people listening, I think that Twitter handle is very explanational, and I want to definitely drive people to that. But keep going if there's more, please.
Yeah. So on that Twitter feed, I mean, it literally lays out, the rules, how we, the kind of the ethos of Tip the Kitchen.
Yes.
How we actually employ it, the mechanics of it. I mean, literally the spreadsheets are on there. We've posted the numbers. Like it is all there for anybody who's interested. And we don't want this to be a proprietary thing. We really believe that for our industry to improve, to get healthier, to be, for sustainability, this is a model that can really help get us there.
It's a model, but it's also a movement. You guys are on the ground floor of like disrupting and turning the entire business model of restaurants and hospitality upside down for the better. That's what I'm seeing. So. That's what I'm hearing. That's what I'm seeing. I'm getting it as a former operator with so much experience that, wow, I had some of the issues we talked about and we had our own ways of dealing with it, but not to this extent, but not to have this kind of long lasting impact.
It has a lot of like,
That's
has,
unbelievable.
the positive impact kind of like balloons out, right? Like,
Yeah.
The initial plan was like, we need to level the disparity in the pay between front and back of the house. Like that was the initial thought, right? We need this to become, we need our back of the house staff to make a livable wage. Like that was
Plain and simple.
the start.
Yeah.
But all of the other positive things that have come out of this, I mean, the camaraderie and morale in the back of the house, the productivity has gone up like through the roof. Like our productivity is, I mean, I can't imagine, it's probably in the high 70 percentile, which is, I don't know if anybody knows, that's a good productivity,
Yeah, for sure.
Let's see what else. There's just like the quality of the product that we're putting out is amazing. The inspiration of the team. I mean, the chefs themselves are creating more interesting food. I mean, the quality of our food is through the roof. The connection between the front and the back of the house, kind of like healing that kind of divide, has been a game changer that we didn't expect. We hoped for, but like, who knew how it would go? And then, our retention. I mean, people just don't quit. Like people are enjoying their jobs. They're more positive. They're happy to be there, which speaks to your point that not everybody's there for a paycheck. Like a lot of people, they're making good money.
Yes.
But they like where they work and they take pride in it. And that is a huge motivator for people.
Well, that's the difference that we talked about earlier. It's not a job now. It's a career. There is upward mobility. There is recognition. There is appreciation. There is opportunity. And you might even move people around amongst your restaurant group. If somebody wants to move to Charleston or Nashville or Denver, or whatever, you're creating opportunities for your great people to keep going in this business.
Yeah. I mean, our goal, our understanding of this is that if we are not profitable and if we don't expand our operations, this movement won't take hold. Like we have to be the ones to grow it. As other restaurants kind of see that it's working and see our expansion, they'll say, hey, maybe we'll adopt this. But we believe that opening in Denver, another restaurant in Nashville, we've got coming on the way. As we open these and implement this tool, it's just going to start, ballooning it up. So staying profitable, keep moving forward, keep, growing our operation is going to help this thing kind of really take hold.
Fantastic. So let's wrap this up by saying we've covered so much important ground here. And I was hanging on every word, and I know this is a really big episode for our audience. What would be your best advice to operators that have been through the pandemic? They're still standing, maybe by a thread they survived, and they're still going. They've been beaten up really badly, and they got to rediscover that pride and the passion that you clearly exemplify with your partners, of course. What's your best advice to people just to keep going, because better days are ahead? This is one possible solution to the labor crisis, but moving forward, you're in this business for a reason. What would you say to those people?
I mean, I would, the thing I would say is that this is the hospitality business and not the restaurant business. If you went into this business to make millions, man, cash out and do something else. We're in this business for people. So put people before profits, focus on the hospitality and you'll make it. Look out for your people and they'll look out for you.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing all your insights, your expertise, this business model, this just everything that was so inspiring about this episode. Thank you so much, Jamie, for being with us. That was go ahead.
Thanks for having me and sharing our story. We really appreciate it.
No, I appreciate you being a great guest. That was the Restaurant Rockstars podcast. Thanks, audience, for tuning in. We hope you all stay well, and we will see you in the next episode.
Thanks, Jamie, for being a great guest. I'm so inspired by your company's philosophy on creating careers, not jobs. And we learned so much in this episode, and it's no wonder why other restaurant groups are reaching out to you to figure out what you're doing, because there's definitely magic happening in your restaurants. And, I was really pleasantly surprised because I was at a food show a week or so ago down in Charlotte, and I was just wandering the downtown area. What a beautiful city it is. And I stumbled across one of your concepts, La Belle Helene. Now, I had a plane to catch. It was about 10 in the morning. You open for lunch at 11. I so wish I had the opportunity to experience it, but I had to take a photo through the window because the ambiance just drew me right in. It was so, beautiful, and I just so wanted to be part of that experience. So when I come back to Charlotte, I'm definitely going to try La Belle Helene and possibly some of your other concepts. Thanks so much for that. Thanks also to the sponsors of this week's episode: Pop Menu, Smithfield Culinary, The Birthday Club, and Serve, the restaurant training app. Can't wait to see you all next time. Don't miss our next episode.
Imagine both your front and back of house teams are so well trained that they're executing flawlessly. Your front of house is doubling your sales, boosting repeat business, and creating 5-star dining experiences, while your back of house is consistently preparing each dish to perfection, on time and to spec. Having a restaurant this dialed takes a unique training system. That's where Serve comes in. Serve means Study Restaurant Variety, and it is a powerful, mobile training system, custom-built to meet the needs of your restaurant. Serve will up-level your team's knowledge and skills, maximize your profits, and create experiences guests will rave about. Picture this. Before the doors open for business, Susan, one of your managers, is assigning Serve training to Paul, your new bartender. Using the app, he will learn both food and beverage ingredients, allergens, romance notes, and pairings. She shows Paul how to use Serve's interactive study tools to become a master of the menu, and how to use the cocktail database to easily find specs to make any drink. He can't wait to hit the floor and sees how Serve will unlock his hidden sales potential. Susan will be able to track his training progress and test his performance. "I've got this," Paul says. Next, Susan just uploaded a brand new appetizer to the Serve menu using the admin dashboard. Using Serve's menu profit tools, she's determined that this new dish will have a major positive impact on the restaurant's bottom line if the team is able to sell it. So she makes it a priority sale item and gets your front of house team on board to suggest it throughout the night. Meanwhile, in the kitchen, Steve, your line cook, pulls out his phone and uses Serve to see prep notes on the new appetizer offering. "Wow," he says, "here are all the ingredients, the cooking steps, and a photo of the plate presentation. This makes it so easy to learn this dish." Sally, your server, returns to her table with drinks and says, "May I now suggest you start with our new signature appetizer? It's the perfect complement to the chef's fantastic lobster special tonight that pairs wonderfully with a bottle of Whitehaven Sauvignon Blanc." "That sounds wonderful," the guest says. "We can't wait to try it." Sally learned these suggestive sales by studying pairings on Serve. Serve also allows you to up-level your management team with a comprehensive restaurant academy that includes efficiencies, inventory management, cost controls, and maximizing profit, menu engineering, proven marketing solutions, and more. Serve includes everything needed to develop your managers into rising stars in your operation. As the leader of your organization, you take pride in continuing to up-level your operation and your team. You know that by investing in your people, jobs become careers, and everyone in your team feels empowered to perform at their best. As you can see, the possibilities with Serve are endless. Serve is the key to unlocking your restaurant's hidden potential and will prove that the more your team is able to learn, the more your restaurant will earn. It's Serve, and it's a game changer. Ready to serve? Get started at srvnow.com.
Thanks for listening to the Restaurant Rockstars podcast. For lots of great resources, head over to restaurantrockstars.com. See you next time.